Welcome to the Purpose to Create podcast with Natasha Wright, a business podcast for photographers and creativepreneurs who want to level up as they pursue their purpose to create. Lean in as we connect, inspire, and impact you as you build and grow your business.
I'm so hyped that you're here and listening to today's show. Today's guest is Samantha Clarke, a lawyer and award-winning international photographer from Toronto, Canada. Also, that's where Drake is from. Yes, I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
She has photographed over 200 wedding and portrait commissions in her 10-year career in destinations across North America, Europe, and the Caribbean. In today's episode, we're chatting all about growing a business. Hey, Samantha, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Natasha. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm super excited. I've been waiting for this for a long time. So let's jump right into it. That's the only way I know how to do this.
Awesome.
So tell us a little bit about Samantha.
All right. Well, that intro was awesome. Thank you so much. And I'm so happy to be on the podcast with you. Congratulations on season 2. This is so cool. So I am, as you said, I'm an international photographer. I am originally from Toronto, but I get to travel all over. I am a lawyer. Right now, I am focusing on my photography business. But at the beginning, I was juggling both for a really long time, and I had to grow my business from the ground up, which was a challenge. So I'm happy that we're going to be talking about that today. And I mean, right now, my focus is wedding photography, but I do get some opportunities to do some commercial work and some portraits as well, which is really fun. But yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Oh, I'm excited. So I want to tap a little bit into this being a lawyer. So you're a lawyer. Do you still practice?
Not right now. I couldn't. Okay. It was too much traveling to manage being at a desk 9 to 5 and then, serving my clients. So I did transition out of practicing law. I still have my license because I worked really hard for it, but no longer practicing full-time photographer at this point.
Okay. And so when you were a lawyer, at what point did you realize that, wait, I don't really want to be a lawyer anymore. I want to be a photographer. And how did you make that transition?
That's a good question. So I always wanted to be a lawyer from a very young age. And so it wasn't an easy realization for me to leave that, career. I think the story that you hear a lot of the time is that people leave their corporate job and now they're free and they're like living the entrepreneur life. That wasn't really my story. I actually feel still very passionate about justice and social justice and equal justice for people. So it wasn't necessarily that I didn't love my job as a lawyer. I think what ended up happening was I was getting so many opportunities to travel and to do things on an international level that it made sense for me to leave that position as a practicing lawyer and, to pursue my business and to have the freedom to do that. I couldn't do both anymore. So the transition was quite a few years. I would say about 5 years of me, doing both and then deciding, you know what, I think I'll take that leap, which wasn't really a leap because I was really thriving in my business at the time. So it was actually a more calculated and intentional transition for me.
Okay, so let's talk about your creative journey now, because you were doing both and then you decided to do photography, but I actually would love to hear about how you got into photography.
Sure. So being a photographer, I think for me, it was like eating and breathing. Like I can even think back to as a person, maybe nine years old, maybe even younger than that. But I remember at 9 having, one of those old camera, like nothing special, but just taking my sister and asking her to pose. Like I pretend we were doing like a fashion photography shoot for like a magazine. And I remember that. And then I sort of just didn't really think of it as a career choice. I didn't even know that it was something you could do long term, but I just knew I was passionate about it. And I guess being in the world, the society that we live in, I found my passion for photography sort of later on as I was still pursuing my degrees. I was in grad school at the time. That's when I actually decided to pursue it as a business. I started out sort of doing it for fun, for friends on the side. And then it turned into a business really just by sharing my work online. Back in the day when Facebook was the main source of social media, Facebook and MySpace, those were the really popular ones. And I shared my work. It wasn't anything special, but I was passionate about what I was doing. And I just was able to get clients that way. People saw what I was doing and they needed a photographer and they started hiring me. And it turned into a business from there.
Oh, awesome. All right. So now let's get into growing your business, because you have been growing your business and it's been so amazing to watch everything evolve. I have been able to take one of your lighting courses and it was absolutely amazing, but I know that there is more to growing a business. And I want to talk about the not so pretty side of growing a business, a lot of the hard work that has to be put in, a lot of the hours that have to be put in, the grind and the grit of it all. But then I also want to talk about the beautiful side of growing your business, the fruit of your labor. So if we can spend some time here talking about growing your business and what does that really mean to you?
Yes. So I have grown my business through a more non-traditional way. I don't necessarily have a formal education in business or marketing or anything like that. I just had a passion for photography and a passion for people. So I started out very modestly. I started with social media and I made sure that I was posting my work regularly and trying to do my best to serve my clients well. And by serving my clients well, they in turn shared their experience and their photos online with friends and family. And my business really grew from there. And I learned quickly that when you serve a client well and you give them a good experience, when you go above and beyond their expectations, they are more likely to share that experience, to talk about it, to be so happy that they can't keep it inside. You know, they want to put your business on the map as well, just because you did something for them that they really appreciate and value. And so quickly, in about 2009, I shot my first wedding and it was like wildfire. I started getting clients for weddings and also portrait sessions. And this was in the middle of me, studying in grad school. And then I went to law school as well. And I continued to grow my business as a student. So I was doing two things at one time. It was a challenge, but I learned a lot in the process of trying to juggle two careers. I also learned that growing a business is more than just taking beautiful pictures. There was a part of the work that is behind the scenes that people don't see. And that has to do with emails, that has to do with managing, clients' expectations, which is really key. And also just managing my own, I guess, inner fears. Sometimes you get nervous. You think about, is this my best work? Is it as good as someone else's? I had to manage that a lot early on. And I sort of learned how to just push through it and grow the business regardless of how I was feeling that day.
Right. And so what did client communication look like during this time where you were still juggling your 9 to 5 and growing your business?
A lot of my clients were aware of the fact that I was doing two things. I wasn't, and I still am of the mindset that when you explain your situation and you're honest with people, they're understanding. People are reasonable. People don't take advantage of a situation if they're decent people, which my clients, luckily, they're amazing. So I was lucky to have people that understood that, during the day, I wasn't usually available, but I would return emails, I would return phone calls in the evenings or weekends. And to be honest, like when you have your own business, you really do have the power to set boundaries and to set your client's expectations. So my communication was usually via email, and it was usually timely. I didn't usually leave people hanging. If I could avoid it, I wouldn't leave people hanging, but I would always try to communicate, I'm not going to be available to meet with you at 9 a.m., but we can meet at 5:30, and people were like, okay, that's cool. So it's all about over communicating, being upfront with people, letting them know your situation. And luckily, I was also able to learn what professionalism looks like. Being a lawyer, you have to be professional. There's no way around it. And I've taken that skill of being a professional and running a business into being a photographer. So I do try my best to be respectful, be professional, be on time. And that has to do with a client having a good experience, because they were like, wow, this person values time, values communication. And a lot of my clients are also young professionals. So they value things like that. They notice when you are on point. So I strive to do that.
And do you ever think that your lawyer world and your creative world would collide? And what I mean by that is like, with creatives, especially when it comes to contracts and things like that, like any type of basic things that creatives should know about contracts, or I don't know, should a photographer have a lawyer, on retainer, things like that, things that we don't necessarily think that we really need, but it's totally random. But as you were speaking, I was like, wow, I wonder if that will that ever, become a thing, or will you ever offer resources, or is that like something you want to keep totally separate?
I actually have toyed with this idea, right? Because a lot of being an artist or a creative, it usually puts us in a position of all we're thinking about is creating. All we're thinking about is that next beautiful picture. And we don't realize that as a business owner, you're actually entering a different realm of liability. You never know what could happen while you're out on the job in terms of people getting injured, or even just the expectations of your couple on a wedding day. That should always be in writing. So I have thought about it. I do discuss it in my in-person mentoring sessions. I do provide, some type of guidance on that. It's something that I've thought about in terms of offering resources, but there's so many good ones out there. So I'm like, maybe not, but I do think it's important for us as artists and photographers to just be aware of the fact that we need to protect ourselves. It's all fun and games until something goes wrong and, you got to pay out of pocket for things. So I do encourage people to have contracts always, even if it's an unpaid, having a contract, just outlining, what you're offering, what they're receiving, when to expect it. And also for paid jobs, of course, having a contract and having insurance. Like, these are all things that running a business, you have to think about these things. So I do see how my legal background actually benefits me in this world of being a creative, because I know what is possible and I know that it's not pretty, just based on what I've seen in my experience.
And I thought it was really important for me to ask that question, because in growing a business, I know early on, I really didn't think about that side of my business. And I know that you said that there are tons of resources out there already available.
Yes.
But would you ever consider at least putting together a resource guide to give people a starting point of where they should be looking to, or what they should be, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
A get started guide type of thing. Here are things you should know when growing your business on the legal side.
Mm-hmm. Listen, when I started, even before becoming a lawyer, I was starting out in photography, and I would have loved to have had a resource, something, that just gave me a few steps. So you planted the seed. You have planted the seed, Natasha. I'm going to work on that, because I do think it's important. And I think as I've been teaching and mentoring and doing my workshops, I do notice that sometimes that's missing. People are asking me questions like, what lens did you use? What camera did you use? And I'm like, yes, those are important, but are you insured? Do you have a contract? Are you, conducting yourself in a way that protects your assets, protects your home, protects your anything that you own? You don't want it taken away because you didn't put the necessary, things in place from a legal standpoint. So you've planted the seed, and I think I will. And to be honest with you, at this stage right now, I do have resources on my website for people to access. So I'll probably just go ahead and add that in as a resource for people to, if you're getting started and you're not sure where to start. I love that idea. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for being open to that. And
Yeah.
I asked that from a place of, I know when I started, it may have been tons of things out there, but they didn't relate to my business.
Yeah.
You feel me? So it's a lot of stuff out there.
Yep.
But because you are a trusted resource.
Right. I think it's a great idea. I would love to offer that. I don't think you're right. I mean, even if there are other resources out there, I have the experience of being out there and doing it myself. So I know the types of questions that I had starting out. And I know things that have come up in my own business that, could benefit someone else. I mean, there's just so much out there that sometimes it's hard to really choose what's right for you. So yeah, I'm definitely open to it. And that's why I love social media. I love interacting with people because I hear what people need. So I'm not doing things just because I feel like doing them. Like my course for lighting, I did that because I was getting a lot of questions about, Sam, how did you light that image? How did you get that effect? So I was like, let me offer something that gives people some insight, some behind the scenes so they understand why I light things a certain way, how I light things in a certain way. So I love that you're giving me all all these ideas, and I'll definitely reach out to you once it's ready so that you can share with others.
Oh, that would be amazing. I would love to do that because, not only people just starting out, but even more seasoned photographers. As you grow your business, things arise that, we just didn't expect.
Yes.
Or didn't know how to plan and prepare for.
Yes.
So even, having because it's different levels to it.
That's right.
Right. And so to create something with the different levels, not just for people starting out, but I feel that there is a gap when it comes to resources for people starting out, but then more seasoned people, right? Everybody targets newer people.
That's right.
But what about us who are growing and need to scale or hire people? We need to outsource.
Right.
What does that look like legally when you're outsourcing? But anyway, we can talk offline about that because we can probably spend all day talking about this. But at least we got the conversation started.
Right.
And we'll make something available to people. And I'll be happy to share that resource with people as well. I'll be an advocate for it since I planted the seed. So
yeah, you have. Thank you so much. It's so funny because I was toying with the idea in my mind, but it's one thing to have the idea in my mind. But if I don't know if people are interested, it's like, why spend time? But you putting that on me now, I'm like, okay, this is it's a sign,
Yeah, because I'll say this last thing and wrap it up. But, when you have a lot of conversations with photographers and the same topics keep coming up, right? But nobody's saying anything to each other.
Right.
People who can really make it happen.
Yes.
So I feel, committed to this and obligated to kind of voice the concerns that I hear of other photographers, who may not feel like they can go, I have access to things most people don't have access to make things happen. So, but that's been a burden on me. I don't know why. I don't know why it's been a burden on me.
Well, that's why you're doing the podcast. It's so powerful and people are going to benefit from everything you're doing, So, yeah.
All right. So back to the show. We're talking about growing a business.
Yeah.
And one of the things I wanted to ask is, in growing a business, what are some common pitfalls as entrepreneurs that we find ourselves in when we're growing our business?
That's a good question. I do think there are pitfalls that you don't see on Instagram, right? Or you don't see online. People make it look very glamorous, very exciting, But there are pitfalls. So in my experience, the biggest pitfall is growing a team. Growing a team is, once you reach a certain level of success, you can't do it by yourself anymore. You have to learn how to let go of certain things, and you have to learn how to outsource. You have to learn how to bring people on that you can trust. So a pitfall for me in that process has been trying to just find good people to work with.
That's real.
Listen, I have to say that's been the biggest challenge. And luckily now I'm at a place where I have found those people, but it took many years, many ups and downs, people that you may get along with them, but on a business level, you may not see eye to eye. So I would say that has been a challenge. But what I've learned, I think that could be beneficial to others is not necessarily being afraid to move on, from certain relationships or from certain business opportunities or business partnerships. It's okay to realize that the season of working with a particular teammate, it may have expired, and move on. It's okay. So that's something I've learned. I do find now that it's positive to also outsource. Maybe you're not at a stage where you can build a team, but you're still, as a business owner, holding on to too many things. At the beginning, we are doing our own invoices. We're doing our own editing as photographers. We are responding to emails. We're marketing on social media. We're doing it all ourselves. But I learned, especially when I was juggling being a lawyer and also building my business, I realized I couldn't do it all myself. I had to outsource some of my work. And luckily, outsourcing is what saved me, I think, and helped me to offer a level of service that other photographers couldn't offer. I was able to get my photos out a lot faster because I wasn't sitting behind the computer, for 12 hours every day trying to get it done. So I think a common pitfall is thinking that you can do it all by yourself. If you do that, you will find yourself sort of getting stuck because we all have strengths. You and I, we're going to have strengths just by virtue of what God has given us. But we also have weaknesses, and some of the weaknesses may be someone else's strength. So
yeah,
I love, telling people, don't be afraid to outsource because it definitely helps you to focus on your strengths. So I would say, let go of certain things. For me, it was editing. I'm more of a people person. I like to be out. I like to be, working with people on site for their photo sessions. But being behind the computer and editing for hours and hours and hours, that's not my favorite thing to do. So I found giving that to another entity, to a team member, that helped so much, and my clients are not waiting and waiting and waiting for their photos. So little things like that has helped. I've found so much benefits to doing that.
No, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And while you were talking, I thought about time management.
Yes.
So during all of these things, what did time management look like for you? Because often we say, oh, how do you balance things? And I'm starting to believe there's really no real, no such thing as balance. Mm-hmm. It's just how you manage it all.
Yeah.
And so what did time management look like for you during this time?
I am a work in progress, Right now it's wedding season. So I don't always find balance, because sometimes with the wedding season, that's the busiest time of year. So it's easy to say, well, yeah, I'm just like balancing it all so well. But the reality is that some days I am on point with my time management. And then there are other days when I really am just trying to manage it all and just get through the day. I do find that there are some tips and tricks that I've learned over the years to help me juggle it. I try to wake up fairly early so that I can get a head start before things get too crazy. So I would say the biggest challenge, though, is because I travel so much, sometimes my schedule is so different. Like some days I'm up and I'm at the airport. So that means I'm not necessarily able to get on my routine. But generally, if I'm in office, I try to get up and then I try to attack at least 3 things that are on my to-do list, like things that I can just knock out very quickly. So maybe it's an email or, something that may not be may not take up too much time. So I try to get those done first. And then I'll have a list. Like I write things down. I have a dry erase board and I like to put the priorities, the things that I need to get done today. And I put, 3 stars beside that one. And then the things that are not so important, I'll put 2 stars. And the things that are really not important, 1 star. And I find that helps just to have a visual of like, okay, what's the priority for today? But time management, I would say, is really just about managing yourself. Like your time, once you realize that your time is valuable and you don't have time for, foolishness, you start to, like for me at least, I've noticed that I started to be more intentional with the things that I agree to.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do everything. I can't do every opportunity that comes to me. At first I did, and I just wanted to do it all. But I learned quickly that there's only so many hours in a day. So I have to be very intentional about what are my goals for this month? What are my goals for the year? And how do the things that I'm going to do each hour or each day going to get me to my goals?
Right.
And if it doesn't fit, I have to say no. And sometimes that's really hard, because I get some great opportunities to do things that I think I would like, but I can't do them all. I have to make time for the things that will get me where I need to be or where I want to be. And that also includes having a social life and, being with family, being with my husband. Those are priorities too. So you got to find a way to prioritize.
And so before we wrap up, I want to know if you can share with us some strategies in growing our business, no matter what stage of business we're in.
Okay. So for me, my biggest, this is probably like a cliche, but people should really focus on being consistent. So whatever it is, in my case, it's photography. It's wedding photography. And I find with a consistent schedule of, sharing my work on social media, people almost come to expect to see my work on a regular basis. And what I like about that is over the years, I've learned that my consistency has turned into so many opportunities because people when they think of a wedding photographer, they think of me because that's what I do. That's what I share. And I do not let time go by without sharing. And to be honest, lately it has been Instagram, but I'm also big on sharing work through my blog. I'm also big on being very intentional with what I'm sharing. It's always consistent. And I think with a consistent pattern of sharing, and I know everyone that listens is not necessarily a photographer, but if you find something that brings you joy and helps other people, if you become a resource or an expert in that area on a consistent basis, people will literally associate that thing with you because you're consistent. So I would say be consistent and don't neglect the fact that you have to be a servant. You have to be of service to people. And that has a lot to do with just doing your best for them. If someone is hiring you to do a job, do your best, go above and beyond. That grows your business in ways that I think are even more powerful because they will speak so highly of you. They'll be your cheerleaders. When you're not around, they've got something positive to say about you. So I would say your level of service, your professionalism, and your consistency is going to help you grow, especially in a creative industry.
This is all good stuff. That was so real. That is so real. No matter what level you're at, you're going to need those three things to continually grow your business.
Definitely.
Oh, I love that. Any last things you want to share?
I do want to just thank you. This is so important. I think what you're doing is so powerful. I've listened to the podcast, like I listened to the previous interviews. So I feel so excited to be here. And I just hope that, I wish you much success with what you're doing. It's awesome.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited. And I'm so honored that you're a guest on my podcast. And then can you tell us how we can stay connected with you after the show?
Yes. So I have Instagram, and my name on Instagram is Samantha Clarke. And that's Clarke with an E. And I also have my website, which has my portfolio and also links to my workshops, which I teach online and in person. And that's www.samantha-clarke.com.
Awesome. Thanks so much again for stopping by. I will see you soon, I'm sure.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Purpose to Create podcast. Share, like, comment, or review this episode. Check out the show notes at www.purposetocreatepodcast.com and connect with us online at Purpose to Create.